Welcome to Social Aloe Ministries, where we are committed to glorifying God while exposing the devil. Have you ever felt like the Lord let you down? For example, He may have promised you something, but it seems as if He kind of waited and it gave the enemy room to just come and snatch your promise away. Similarly to Rachel, she'd been engaged to Jacob for 7 years, but at the last minute, Laban, her father, ended up giving Leah to Jacob, and they got married instead. Now, there was deception involved, but still, and even Jacob, he had waited 7 years for Rachel, and he ended up with Leah. That was not a fulfillment of the promise. And it's kind of like, why didn't the Lord stop it? Why didn't He do something? Now, one of the things with that story is that rather than just marrying one woman, Jacob ended up with 2 wives and 2 concubines. Nowadays, not going to happen. So if you're like a Jacob waiting on a Rachel, or a Rachel waiting on a Jacob, a Leah coming into the picture, that is a bad thing. But some people have been in that situation where they had a promise. The time was coming for the fulfillment of the promise, if there was a time associated, and then something happened. Then, in a sense, disrupted the plan. Well, I'm here to encourage you. In Joel 2:25 and 26, the Lord said, "And I will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten, the cankerworm, and the caterpillar, and the palmerworm, my great army which I sent among you. And ye shall eat in plenty, and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord your God, that hath dealt wondrously with you, and my people shall never be ashamed." So even though he had the locust, the caterpillar, the palmerworm, they had eaten the crops, the Lord was going to restore those things. God, He's a creator. And even if the enemy were to send locusts, cankerworm, caterpillar, and palmerworm to seemingly devour the promise, God is still on the throne. In some cases, something was taken, He will restore it. So fear not. When the Lord makes a promise to you, basically, do your part, and He will do His by the appointed time. Don't worry about what it looks like. As long as you have a legitimate promise from the Lord, He will fulfill it. And sometimes what you're waiting on the Lord for, it may actually die. And in some cases, it may seem as if He was busy helping someone else that He forgot about you. But there's more for the Lord to go around for everyone. And for that, we'll take a look in a story in Luke 8, starting in verse 40. "And it came to pass that when Jesus was returned, the people gladly received Him, for they were all waiting for Him. And, behold, there came a man named Jairus, and he was a ruler in the synagogue, and he fell down at Jesus' feet and besought Him that He would come into his house. For he had one only daughter, about 12 years of age, and she lay a dying, but as he went, the people thronged him." So Jairus had one daughter, and she was dying, and he needed Jesus right away. But people, they're basically holding Jesus up. But Jairus needed Jesus right away. his daughter was dying. Some of you, you've been watching that promise basically die in front of you. You're wondering where Jesus is, to breathe some life into it, to fulfill the promise before it passes away. And a woman having an issue of blood 12 years, which had spent all her living upon physicians, neither could be healed of any, came behind him and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her issue of blood stanched. And in some cases, in a sense, you can see the Lord coming. You can see hope in your situation. And then suddenly someone comes out of nowhere, and that person gets what they were desiring before you did. Now with Jairus, I don't think his daughter had been dying for 12 years. And actually, wow, this just hit me. Jairus' daughter was 12 years old. The woman with the issue of blood had had the issue for 12 years. So she had had the issue for as long as Jairus' daughter was alive. A lot of times, when we want the Lord to do things for us, we only see things from our perspective. We don't see others who need him more than we do, or who have been waiting longer on him than we have. So even though Jairus' family issue was pressing, it was an emergency. Still, you had this lady who had been having an issue of blood for 12 years. Jairus may have been waiting for 12 days, but she had been waiting for 12 years. So when you see someone getting seemingly blessed ahead of you, please do not complain. Do not say it's unfair, because you never know what the other people have gone through. And even if they haven't been waiting as long as you never know what they have been going through. Also, sometimes if the Lord's trying to fulfill a promise to you, and he may be telling you to go to a certain place, do certain things, and if you haven't been listening to him, then it may cause delays. But this woman was at the right place at the right time. And Jesus said, "Who touched me?" When all denied, Peter and they that were with him said, "Master, the multitude throng thee and press thee, and saith thou, Who touched me?" And Jesus said, "Somebody hath touched me, for I perceive the virtue is gone out of me." In some cases, things like this may kind of frustrate you. It's kind of like the Lord is here asking questions, but you have that issue that's going on, and the promise is dying. Again, fear not. And when the woman saw that she was hid, or correction, was not hid, she came trembling and falling down before him. She declared unto him before all the people what cause she had touched him, and how she was healed immediately. This lady had a personal issue, but now she was testifying. She was glorifying the Lord. There's also a story of how Jesus healed 10 lepers. But only one came back to glorify the Lord, a Samaritan. And because of that, he was made whole. Ensure that whenever the Lord fulfills your heart's desire, that you glorify him. Jairus may not have understood it at the time, but Jesus stopping to find out who had touched him, it was also for that lady to share her testimony. And that is something too many people do not do well enough. Share their testimony to glorify the Lord, to glorify how He has delivered you from certain things. You don't necessarily have to get into specifics, but please, when the Lord blesses you, glorify His name. And He said unto her, Daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith had made thee whole. Go in peace. While he yet spake, there cometh one from the ruler of the synagogue's house, saying to him, Thy daughter is dead. Trouble not the master. Thy daughter is dead. Trouble not the master. Some of you may have gotten to that point where it's kind of like, okay, Lord, don't even bother showing up. My heart's desire is gone. But remember what the Lord said in Joel 2:25 through 26, that He will restore the years that locusts, the cankerworm, the caterpillar, and the palmerworm have eaten. The Lord is a creator. He's a restorer. Jesus is the resurrection and the life. If He promised you something, even if it's dead, He can restore it. It may seem like He's busy with other people, but the Lord has not forgotten about you. If He promised you something, He is going to fulfill that promise. He's going to bring it to pass, regardless of what it looks like. But when Jesus heard it, He answered him, saying, Fear not, believe only, and she shall be made whole. And when He came into the house, He suffered no man to go in, save Peter and James and John, and the father and the mother of the maiden. Jesus only allowed Peter, James and John, the mother and father, to go in with Him. There are times when people are around you and they may not be telling you things that are of the Lord, and you need to separate from them so that you're with the Lord and you're hearing what He is saying. And all wept and bewailed her. But He said, Weep not. She's not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed Him to scorn, knowing that she was dead. It is not dead unless God says it's dead. So I mentioned about separating yourself from people who are not saying things that are for the Lord. For some people, if what you have been waiting on, the desire of your heart, was not from the Lord, then yes, a person from the Lord may have to tell you that that promise is dead, or that thing is dead. That desire is dead. But if it was a promise from the Lord, it is not dead. So they laughed Him to scorn, knowing that she was dead. And He put them all out, and took her by the hand, and called her, saying, Maid, arise. So because they didn't believe, Jesus put them out. Only if you know, not if you're deceived, but only if you know that something is of the Lord. There are times when you have to put everyone else out. So you're hearing only from the Lord, not the naysayers. And when I say naysayers, I'm referring to those individuals who are not telling you the God's truth. The naysayers. Jesus put them all out and told her to arise. And her spirit came again, and she arose straightway, and he commanded her to meat. And her parents were astonished. But he charged them that they should tell no man what was done. Of course, that was back then where the Lord was trying to keep his identity a secret. There were very few people that he openly told that he was a Messiah. So there were times when he would tell people not to say things, but they would say it anyhow. But nowadays, when the Lord fulfills a promise, glorify his name. Oh boy. There will come a time for me when people will not be able to shut me up. But I'm waiting on the Lord. Waiting is not always easy, but if you have a desire in your heart that the Lord put there and he promised you something, be still and know that he's God. And he will fulfill his promise to you.